Gary Lineker has divided opinion after he appeared to draw comparisons between the Tory government's new illegal migration bill and Nazi Germany. Gary stirred a reaction as he responded to the controversial bill, which was unveiled by Home Secretary Suella Braverman, and called it beyond awful and hit out at the announcement on Twitter. The Match of the Day star, who welcomed a second refugee into his home last year, reshared a video of the Home Secretary discussing the bill and wrote, "Good heavens, this is beyond awful." As he received responses to his tweet, one of which saying he was out of order, he added in the separate post, "There is no huge influx. We take far fewer refugees than other major European countries. This is just an immeasurably cruel policy directed at the most vulnerable people in language that is not dissimilar to that used by Germany in the 30s, and I'm out of order?" It was later reported the BBC planned to speak to Gary over his comments and he would be reminded of his responsibilities on social media, Sky News reported. A spokesperson also added, "The BBC has social media guidance, which is published. Individuals who work for us are aware of their responsibilities relating to social media. We have appropriate internal processes in place if required." Gary later reacted to the response on Twitter as he quipped, "Morning all. Anything going on?" He then added, "Great to see the freedom of speech champions out in force this morning demanding silence from those with whom they disagree." In a later tweet he acknowledged his supporters as Lineker wrote, "I have never known such love and support in my life than I'm getting this morning, England World Cup goals aside, possibly. I want to thank each and every one of you. It means a lot. I'll continue to try and speak up for those poor souls that have no voice. Cheers all." Meanwhile, the Home Secretary said she is disappointed by Gary's comments. Ms. Braverman told BBC Breakfast, "I'm disappointed, obviously. I think it's unhelpful to compare our measures, which are lawful, proportionate and, indeed, compassionate, to 1930s Germany. I also think that we are on the side of the British people here." Gary's fans have been divided over his comments as some agreed with him. One wrote, "Nailed it, Gary X." Another added, "Thanks Gary. As the grandson of a refugee it means a lot when people with your high profile speak out. Sick, don't let the BBC make you apologize because this tweet has 10,000 plus likes. That might mean 10,000 of us could threaten to cancel our license fee in protest," a third urged. The tweet has been liked more than 35,000 times at the time of writing, and retweeted more than 5,406 times. But, some have called for the BBC presenter to be sacked for breaching the BBC's guidelines on impartiality. One said, "The BBC is supposed to be impartial. They're clearly a mouthpiece for Labour and should not be receiving taxpayer money to promote their politics." Another added, "Gary Lineker is entitled to his opinions like everyone else, but because of the setup of the BBC and being supposedly impartial he has to be careful what he tweets. If he wants to go the political way then he will need to consider his position within the organisation." Ridiculous of Gary Lineker to have an opinion on an issue, rather than acting as an objective impartial BBC employee should and quietly funding the Prime Minister's overdraft, a third added. However, this isn't the first time Gary has garnered attention. Outspoken moments. Gary has repeatedly been outspoken on a number of subjects over the years, including politics. In September 2021, he made a damning assessment of the Labour Party. Amid the difficulties with the opposition, including Andy MacDonald's resignation as Shadow Secretary of State for Employment Rights and Protections, he tweeted, "Seems the Labour Party is constantly in opposition with itself rather than the government." In 2018, he butted heads with Jonathan Agnew and told to keep his views to himself for sharing a string of tweets, airing his views on Brexit. Former cricketer Jonathan wrote, "Gary, you are the face of BBC Sport. Please observe BBC editorial guidelines and keep your political views, whatever they are and whatever the subject, to yourself. I'd be sacked if I followed your example. Thanks." Lineker hit back as he responded, "Jonathan, I'm the face of my own Twitter account. I'll continue to tweet when I like, and if folk disagree with me then so be it. Thank you so much for your concern, which, I imagine, wouldn't be a concern at all if you agreed with me. It isn't just politics Gary has found himself hitting the headlines over." In August 2022, Lineker received backlash for his tweet as the Lionesses won the Euros. Pundit porn prank. Earlier this year, Gary discovered a phone had been hidden in the BBC studio after coverage of a FA Cup game went into disarray. The programme was interrupted by porn sounds and Gary was left attempting to direct pre-match punditry as the sounds played. Yet the noises kept coming at regular intervals, leaving fans up and down the country who had tuned into their televisions utterly bewildered. A YouTuber, who boasts the account name Jarvo69 aka BMW Jarvo, was then unveiled as the prankster as he went live and streamed the stunt to thousands of viewers as he explained how they had managed to tape a phone to the back of the BBC set ready to play the explicit audio as soon as they called it. Match of the Day host Lineker, meanwhile, saw the funny side and took to Twitter to explain what had been causing the noises, writing, "Well, we found this taped to the back of the set. As sabotage goes, it was quite amusing." The BBC later offered a formal apology as a spokesperson said, "We apologise to any viewers offended during the live coverage of the football this evening. We are investigating how this happened." Huge BBC salary, and major cut. In September 2020, Gary took a £400,000 pay cut as host of Match of the Day for the next 5 years. He also agreement to be more careful when using Twitter to push his political causes at the time. The deal was announced at the launch of the corporation's report at the time and emphasized how BBC staff would be bound by a strict set of new rules around social media usage. BBC's Director General Tim Davies said at the time, "Gary knows that he has responsibilities to the BBC in terms of his use of social media." At the time, Gary said, "I love working with the BBC, and am very proud to continue to be a part of their outstanding football team. I'm looking forward to the next 5 years, with a European Championship and World Cup on the horizon. It's exciting times for me and the team." Following the announcement, he also tweeted, "Oh dear. Thoughts are with the haters at this difficult time." He also defiantly replied no when told he should be terrified of the clampdown. Piers Morgan feud. Gary has been embroiled in a Twitter feud with outspoken presenter Piers Morgan for years, with the pair exchanging nasty blows across social media. Piers called out the BBC pundit on everything from his salary, ratings, politics and even his ears. A particularly nasty row kicked off in August 2019 when Gary slammed the government's decision to extend the suspension of Parliament, 2 weeks before the UK was set to leave the European Union. Piers quipped, says the man who has howled for 3 years that we should ignore the result of a democratic vote. Gary insisted he never said the result of 2016's EU referendum should be ignored, adding, "We could though look at the crooked, lying nature of how it was sold to us back then by the elite now dictating, literally, and decide as a democratic country if that's still what we want." Piers hit back with, "Mate, it doesn't get more elite than you." As BBC license fee payers know to our cost. "Mate, it doesn't get much more elite than ostentatiously showing off your wealth. You constantly tell me you earn way more than me," with a deluge of pictures by marauding around the Côte d'Azur on a yacht, Gary responded. But Piers still wasn't done, adding, "I don't pretend not to be in the elite. And it's not my fault I earn far more than you, it's my talent." Piers has also nicknamed Gary Jugs, while Lineker has called Piers Tubbs in the past. The pair have had more online spats, but appeared to have made up in January last year with a cozy night together. Piers shared a photo of Gary wearing an apron with Chef Gaz written on it and told his followers the Leicester-born star was making him dinner. Captioning the pic in which the controversial host grins holding a glass of red wine, he wrote, "Decided to finally get my BBC license fee money out of Gary Lineker at his home last night. Have to say, Chef Gaz delivered a quite delicious feast including gambas al ajillo and filet steak au poivre. Did everything himself, for 5 of us, and it was all perfectly cooked." Then he proudly showed off his golden boots, before the shock late Leicester result came through to ruin his evening. All in all, a most enjoyable soiree, and definitely worth 43p.
From